So I'm really excited about the Shark Tank React. I actually backed this company on Kickstarter years ago and excited to see how they did in front of the sharks.
Next up is a modern version of an important health accessory.
Hey Sharks, my name is Justin Wang. I'm here today to ask for $500,000 for 1% of my company, Lark. Have you ever noticed that funky smell coming from your reusable water bottle?
They gotta all be laughing because the valuation is crazy. So he's asking for a $50 million valuation here.
Woo-wee! The average reusable water bottle contains more bacteria colony than your dog bowl or toilet seat. No wonder they stink. And it's no wonder it's so tempting to reach for a single-use plastic water bottle. The result? Over 1 million of these guys are consumed every single minute. And that's no good for your health, and even worse for the environment. That's why we invented the Lark bottle. The Lark bottle is the world's first self-cleaning water bottle that purifies water on the go. With a simple press of a button, and in just 60 seconds, the Lark bottle activates our patented UVC LED technology, PureBis, to eradicate 99.99% of the harmful and odor-causing bacteria, viruses, and mold. The result? Pure water from a pristinely clean bottle. So sharks, who's thirsty for a great deal?
All right, I just want to pause there. So I think this is like a super interesting concept. In fact, this was a pain point that I had where like, I loved having these water bottles, but then invariably they'd sit in my bag and they'd kind of get that musty smell to them or whatever. And I didn't feel safe drinking them. It was like all I had in it was water. I just wanted a way to keep them safe and clean. And so when I saw them on Kickstarter, I actually backed them because I was like, this is perfect. And even at Kickstarter, I felt like it was kind of expensive, but I was like, hey, look, if I end up actually using it all the time and always have the water bottle with me, then, maybe it's worth it, right? Like I have a lot of water bottles and, this probably costs the equivalent, at least on Kickstarter, was the equivalent of like 5 or 6 bottles. But I was like, maybe if I use it, it would be worth it. And, to their credit, like this feels like a very high quality device. It's very well made. It looks great. Unfortunately, though, it definitely was very buggy. And in fact, I didn't end up using it because it just wouldn't work half the time. And the charge wouldn't last super long. And so, it just had a lot of issues with it, which was really a bummer because I really wanted to love it. And, my expectation is they've probably overcome a bunch of those things. But now at this point, I'm just kind of like, I don't know if I want to take another risk buying another one. Well, let's see how the rest of the pitch is going for him.
Just want to be clear I heard you properly. 500,000 for 1%.
That's correct, Robert.
Congratulations. Highest valuation ever requested in the Shark Tank.
You seem like a reasonable human being. Tell us why it's
By the way, in all
50
transparency,
million.
I have a couple of these.
Oh, you do?
Yeah.
Great.
You do?
That is awesome.
I do.
But what's the market opportunity
Yes.
that justifies this?
So it's a huge market. Big water is a real thing. It's a $300 billion market worldwide, of which reusable market is only 7%. It is growing. I tried to swear off of single-use plastic water bottles several years ago.
Yeah, it's a $21 billion market, but it's an insanely crowded $21 billion market. And then you add on the fact that this is definitely like a premium product. It really shrinks down the market in terms of the number of people that are willing to spend probably over $50 for a water bottle. I got to imagine that's an even smaller market. So I would kind of push back on him on his market size a little bit there. I don't think it's anywhere near 21 billion.
It looks to me like you have a UV light in the top. Can you explain how this works and what it does?
This is actually an optical system that's designed to reflect the UV light inside. So simply, you press this button, the UV light turns on. My co-founder is a PhD in physics from Caltech. He's engineered this to bounce the optical light throughout the bottle.
So then how many minutes does it take to do that?
We have 2 modes. Our normal mode is 60 seconds, and then we have a adventure mode, which is 3 minutes. So if you want to take it to a developing country, or camping, or you're just somewhere where you don't quite trust the water.
Justin, is it safe for them?
So funny thing about that though. So here's the LED sensor and it goes inside, right? but you actually drink off of the lip that never actually gets cleaned. So I don't know. It's good in theory, but it's not like you're not getting a perfect, sterilization.
Why is it worth $50 million?
So we launched this product in 2018. So we've been on the market for a little under
Almost
2 years.
2 years, huh?
Under 2 years. And in our first full year in 2019,
He is like so incredulous of that valuation. It's so funny to watch Mark Cuban.
we did a little over $5.5 million in sales.
There you go.
In the last 12 months, we've done over $9 million. This year, we're planning on doing $14 million.
What you gonna
Okay, so let's stop right there. So $5.5 million in their first year, that's actually like phenomenal growth, right? To go from 0 to 5.5, that's really impressive. Then he's saying that they've done $9 million in the last 12 months. So if we take that $9 million in the last 12 months and we take that $55 million valuation, that means that he's valuing this business at 5.5, 5.6x, which, honestly is not that far out of range of what you'd expect for a consumer products business, especially one that is growing this quickly. Now, generally, consumer products businesses trade in the 1 to 3x range. But if you've got a really high growth business in consumer products, you can easily justify 5 to 6x. And I'd be really curious to understand what his margin profile looks like here, because that would be another important factor in determining whether or not he should get a premium on his valuation. If he has high margins, then yeah, there's room for him to get a premium on valuation. If not, that's a little bit more of a struggle. But either way, 5.5, 5.6x doesn't scare me. And I think that's what the Sharks are going to realize, is that maybe they judged him a little too quickly. He's got a real business. It's growing super fast, especially in comparison to the deals they normally look at.
What you gonna make on the $14 million?
So we brought on our first outside venture capital round earlier this year in January, and we leaned into growing the business. So this year, we're expecting to lose about $1 million.
Justin, how much did you raise?
6.7
At what valuation?
at a $31.7 million.
Just want to pause for a second because he says they're going to burn $1 million last year. And, that kind of makes me a little bit worried because this company, it's just a one-time sell. And so if they're burning $1 million on $9 million, that means that, they must not have incredibly strong gross margins, or they're spending a tremendous amount on marketing. Which on the one hand, I guess that kind of makes sense because you have to spend a bunch of money on marketing to really build a brand and really to educate customers, because this really is a differentiated product. It's not just like a normal water bottle, and they have to justify to customers why you would spend so much on this water bottle. But I don't know. Generally, when I'm looking at consumer products businesses, it's much better if they're at about break even, or at least generating some profit, as well as seeing really high growth.
$1.7 million valuation.
So Justin, let's talk real business. You've only raised 6.7. How much do you have in the bank?
I have about 6.5.
Okay, so you really haven't had to spend anything,
for you.
right?
Yeah.
What did these retail for?
The one you have right there is 95.
I paid 95 for this?
Oh, the challenges of being rich and not knowing how much you
want
spend
to
on
make
things.
it?
The landed cost is around 40.
I think we're at a time when people are really angry. They're looking for hope. And when I signed up to this platform, the platform didn't start off as the wealthy helping the wealthy. With 6.5 million in the bank, I just could not do this because I just think that I'm here for a different reason. I think this is crazy. I'll let the other Sharks discuss it, but I'm out.
I also come from a background where I didn't have a lot. It's unfortunate you won't take that journey with me, but I respect what you're saying.
So let me take a shot at it. I support a charity called One Drop, making sure everybody can drink fresh water around the world. It's something I can get behind. Love to be involved in this, but I'm not doing it for 1%. I bring too much value. I've never done a deal for 1% for obvious reasons. I'll do it for 4%. I don't care how you structure it, advisory shares, whatever.
So you want him to do it at almost 1/3 of his last round.
I understand. I didn't say.
Hey, I just want to point out here one of the things that Shark Tank does. So they say that Kevin O'Leary just offered $500,000 for 4%, which represents a $12.5 million valuation. The problem with that is that that's a post-money valuation. So really, if you take out the investment that he's going to put into the company, he's really saying the business is worth $12 million, or roughly 1/4 of what the entrepreneur was hoping to get. Essentially $19 million less than his last round, in fact. So that's pretty steep. And, my guess is that the entrepreneur is going to be in a tough spot, because if he takes a valuation that's lower than his last round, it's effectively a down round. And there could be significant consequences. For example, he may have a bunch of employees that have all received stock options that were priced at that last round. And if he raises this money from Kevin O'Leary at a lower valuation, it's going to end up hurting his employees, for example, because their options were priced here and all of a sudden the valuation's down here and all of a sudden they're underwater. So there could be some issues there. Also, his other investors are probably going to be ticked. They're like, hey, you know, you got Kevin O'Leary and he probably brings a lot of value, but we don't want to take a write down in our valuation just because you let him invest. Like, that's not fair. So I'll be curious to see if the entrepreneur pushes back on that, largely because whether the business is worth it or not, like, he's got some structural things that are going to cause him issues there.
Is there other offers out there? Or
You know, to give you $500,000 for 1%, I feel like I'm not making anything.
The category that we're in is gigantic. It's a $300 billion industry, and it's so ripe for disruption and so ripe for innovation. I think for the
Honestly,
category,
here, like,
I'm willing to take offers and listen to
Make an
counter
offer,
Make an
Laurie.
offer, Laurie.
I would love to work with you. I would love it.
$500,000.
Of course he wants to work with her because she's the QVC lady. And so he's like, yeah, if I can get this bottle on the QVC, like that would blow up. And he could probably generate more money in like one day of QVC than in a whole year.
$100,000 for 5%.
You keep on going backwards, Justin.
Justin, the problem with 1% is you're priced for perfection. And yes, I would love to own 1% of Apple, and I would love to own 1% of Tesla, but the odds are just so low. To make it easier for your investors, I'll do $500,000 for 3%. We can work out the other 2% from your advisory pool. That's my offer.
So that's actually an interesting concept. He's basically saying, all right, I'll invest the money and you can give me the 3% for that, but then maybe you give me some additional advisory shares. And this would be a way for him to work it out. That's why he was saying to help you with your other investors, those that came in at that $30-ish million valuation, to help them. I'll do the deal. You can give me those shares, that 3%. And then we can just figure out an advisory agreement for the other 2% to get me to where I want to be. The implied valuation there is 16.7. So definitely better than what the other investors have offered him, but still not great.
That's my offer.
And Mark, are you anywhere?
Yeah, I know where I'm at. So look, there's different platforms for different reasons, right? This is a place where people come where they just need a little bit more fuel. They need a little bit of help. We're not here to evaluate companies that may be $1 billion in sales over a $1 trillion market in 20 years, which is possible. But this is not the place to do it. So for those reasons, I'm out.
So you have 3 offers. What do you want to do?
So I don't get that. So Mark Cuban invests in high growth technology companies all the time. I don't know why it matters what the venue is. I don't know. It just feels kind of short-sighted. I don't know. What do you guys think?
What do you want to do?
You know, the offers are all great, but even without the advisory shares below my last valuation of 32-ish, right? To be honest with you, that's really my bottom line. What about we got you all in for $500,000 each for $1.5 million total at 4.5%. And I will also throw in advisory share of 1% split between the 3 of you. So for a total...
Okay, so what he's proposing there is that pitch is $1.5 million for 4.5%. That gets him right at the same valuation as that he just raised at that $31.8 million. And then he'll throw on the advisory shares on top of that. So I actually think it's like a really smart proposition for the Sharks. It kind of checks his boxes with his other investors, with his employees, etc., but also can give the Sharks like a better deal than they would otherwise get if they were just investing in the company. And to his credit, he would pick up some hopefully really good advocates, advisors, and connections to help him grow his business.
Total, it would be 5.5% for that money.
Yeah.
Okay, here's something we'll do. Would you consider $1.5 million for 6% and each shark gets 2? If you get 3 sharks, huge value for you.
To be honest, the only Shark that I would care about if I were him is Laurie. I think she's the only one that brings the most value, but let's see what he decides.
Huge value for you.
1.5 million, 500,000 each for 6%. What say you?
I could accept the offer with one condition, that the structure in a way that $1.5 million for 4.5%, and the remaining 1.5% would be advisory shares to be divided among you.
My question is, do I get 2% for my $500,000?
You do.
How long is the vesting period for the advisory share?
Ooh, that is a really good question, because advisory shares are usually contingent on the advisor doing something and are vested over time. And if they don't do what they're supposed to do as part of the agreement, then they don't get those shares. So Kevin O'Leary is like being really smart. He's like, hey, let's, the devil is in the details here. Let's make sure we're all on the same page on what I'm getting and when.
24 months?
Based on what?
But
Forget
so
the vesting
Yeah, what are
period.
you basing
Like, what do
that
I have
on?
to do to get my advisory shares?
I think we just have a conversation about what we could do with the business, how we could build it together.
Oh,
maybe it's
God.
QVC, maybe it's the
Justin,
developing
let
channel.
me make it very simple.
Yeah.
It's too complicated. You know what? I'm out because I've worked really hard to get to this point. I don't need you to interview me.
Wow, Robert's kind of ticked. That's interesting that he's out. I didn't think his pushback was too crazy, but I get it from the Sharks' perspective too. At the end of the day, they don't want to be interviewed. They don't want to be on the hook for certain things. They just want to put money in and get ownership back out, right? And on the one hand, I get it from their perspective. On the other hand, it's kind of not fair to the founder because he's trying to balance all these different things. Clearly, there's real value that the Sharks can bring, especially Lori with her QVC connections, but on the other hand, he's got stakeholders that bet on him earlier on, right? And he's got to take care of them and his employees. So I don't know. It's a tough tension.
I don't want contingencies on it. You know that we're going to be involved. We don't want to see that just evaporate.
Absolutely, absolutely.
I'm in for 2% for $500,000.
I'll do $1 million for 4%, split between you and Lori.
I'm in.
No advisory. It's just straight.
Advisory would just vest, no contingencies. So $500,000 each for 1.5% plus 0.5% in advisory shares, 2% total.
I don't want advisory shares. I like
Can
just
you
the
do that?
equity.
Look, I want her part of the deal for sure. I see lots of value here.
Of course he wants her in the deal. He knows that she makes or breaks this deal for him. In fact, if he can't get Lori in, he probably won't do the deal, right?
I want the same. So are you putting a stake in the sand here? On the
Yeah, I would go 2%,
Okay, well, that's what you got to do.
but not advisory shares.
What if those shares just vested up front? Because I have to structure something where I'm not going below my last valuation. It's 2% up front.
Done.
Done. All right.
Yes.
So I think overall this was a win for him. Clearly he didn't get the $50 million valuation he was hoping for, but to raise more money at the last round, which I assume just happened because if he's only spent $200K of his cash from that last round, it couldn't have been that long ago that the money actually hit the bank. And so honestly, the right thing to do was to give them that same valuation that he just raised at. The advisory shares, ultimately they're getting in at a slightly better valuation of around $25 million. But I do think that Lori at least is going to bring a ton of value to the business, or at least has the potential to. And so to get those two Sharks on board, especially her, to get the money at a valuation that makes sense, I think all around win-win-win. So if you enjoyed this Shark Tank React, check out some of my others, like the one where we sit down and watch the Sharks evaluate the Cheater app.